Welcome to the Elaborate Topics podcast, where we focus on lab-specific strategies for medical laboratory professionals. We're proud to be the healthcare detectives that work behind the scenes to get the results needed to influence medical decisions. Let's grow together and jump right into the lab.
Hi friends, we're back again. You've landed on another awesome episode of Elaborate Topics. I am your host and leadership mentor, Tywauna Wilson. If this is your first time tuning in to Elaborate Topics, thank you so much for tuning in. It is a weekly podcast that gives you practical tips that you can use both inside and outside of the laboratory. Whether you're on the bench, you're in management, or you're looking for tips to excel in your personal life, you have landed on the right podcast. Myself, along with my co-hosts, Lona Small and Stephanie Whitehead, bring you different strategies, tips that you can use, along with our amazing guests that we highlight on this show. So this show is no different. I have another topic for you today. While it's not a fun topic, it's a necessary topic. And I'm going to be talking about giving effective feedback. I'm going to give you 3 steps that you can take to be able to up-level the way that you give feedback. This is very important, especially if you are a manager or leader in your organization. Now more than ever, our workforce is very diverse. And our staff yearns for feedback, especially when it's delivered properly. And I know you're probably thinking, feedback? Yes, feedback is very important. And in our laboratory space, laboratorians tend, if you've ever taken the DISC assessment, then laboratorians tend to be C-wired personnel. And one of the biggest fears of C-wired personnel is the fear of criticism. And so this topic can be uncomfortable and sometimes go unnoticed in our medical laboratories. And even if our staff are S-wired, which is our steady, loyal teammates, criticism and giving this feedback can sometimes be uncomfortable, especially if it was related to change or anything that would interrupt their peace and harmony. So no worries. I am going to give you some tips that you can use today that you can go ahead and apply. So feedback is one of the most valuable things a laboratory leader can give. And really, it should be looked at as a gift. When somebody tells you something you're doing right, that you're doing awesome, that you're amazing at, it gives you that motivation and fuel to continue to do that with excellence and even get even better with that. And if it's something that you are not doing with the level of excellence, then having that feedback to know where you can course correct and change maybe some of the things that you may not be aware of. Constructive feedback in the workplace helps us to understand what we're doing right and where we need to improve. So when feedback is positive, it acts as a source of inspiration and motivation. So I'm not sure about you, but when I hear positive feedback, it does fuel me to continue to go forward, or it lets me know that I'm on the right track or that I'm doing a great job. It is that reassurance of knowing that we're taking the right steps towards success, because who wants to spend time going in the wrong direction? But on the flip side, when feedback is negative, it can be worrisome, especially initially, but it's also a fantastic opportunity for growth. Negative feedback, when given effectively, shows us the things we need to work on in a supportive and insightful way. It means we can become better at what we do in the long term. So before we get into those actual steps on being able to give effective feedback, I'm going to talk about some benefits of it. And benefits of feedback, it actually starts with engagement. And I know organizations are struggling now more than ever with employee engagement. And this is a tool given feedback, especially effective feedback, that can help you with your employee engagement. When people get constant feedback and guidance from their bosses, from their team leaders, from their managers or directors, they feel more engaged by their role and more like they are part of the team. There are countless statistics that proves that feedback drives positive results. And I know as lab people, you want the statistics, you want the facts. And so around 96% of employees say that they want to hear feedback regularly. And that's according to a study. Feedback also reduces staff turnover. See, this is starting to get good because I know that in your organizations, you're struggling with turnover. It seems like you hire them, you train them, they leave. You hire, train, they leave. And so giving effective feedback along the way will reduce staff turnover. Telling your employees that they're doing a good job regularly is a great way to keep them around. And it also gives them information about what they may be doing wrong. Team members like to see that they're making progress in their roles, and feedback actually helps with this. You never want to get to an annual evaluation and then it's like, okay, well, all throughout the year, you weren't performing at the level that we expected. That definitely is disheartening. And it's like, why didn't you tell me so that I can try to improve sooner? Feedback also provides better business outcomes. So this is how you can drive it back to the business. You can only drive better results for your organization if your employees know what to do to deliver success. So telling your employees why the work they've done is good or inadequate means that they're more likely to deliver effective results in the future. When there's role clarity, when they know what they're supposed to be doing, when they know what the expectations are, it makes it easier for them to be in alignment with your organizational goals and outcomes. It also increases productivity. The more feedback your team receives, the more confident they'll be about taking responsibility and initiative. So think about all of those extra projects that you have. Think about getting ready for CAP and COLA and all of those regulatory inspections. Thinking about having somebody help with the crosswalk with those. Think about all of those safety initiatives. So providing regular feedback keeps your team members from constantly questioning what they do because they already know what kind of behavior you expect or dislike. So if you needed a case on why effective feedback is important, those are just a few of the reasons why providing effective feedback is very important. It reduces your staff turnover, it provides better business outcomes for your organization, and it increases productivity. So let me give you 3 easy steps for being able to create and give effective feedback. The first step when you're doing or giving feedback is to be positive. I know sometimes it's easy to get caught up in our emotions, and sometimes our emotions may or may not be positive. So step 1 is being positive. Notably, giving feedback is also important, but not just any feedback. Only around 29% of employees say that the feedback that they get helps them to perform better in their job. And that's because of the way the feedback was given. Presentation is everything. Perception is reality. So if you want the things you say to have a positive influence on your team, it's important to have a strategy. First, you can start by addressing the positive behavior. This makes it much easier to give great feedback because you just tell your employees what you liked about their work and thank them for their effort, especially in environments where it's very stressful. I know now People are working very short. The environment is very stressful. People are picking up extra shifts. This is a great way to start addressing the positive behavior. And if the feedback you're going to give is totally positive, then highlight what made it so useful and recognize the outcomes that came from the work that the employee was given. An example of this could be, great job on that proposal presentation. The way you connected our lab features and benefits to their patient needs really got them to take notice. If you're going to give negative feedback, focusing on the positive first will make your team member more open to hearing the rest of what you're going to say. So an ineffective way sounds something like this. Your latest work isn't written in line with our brand or company voice. A more effective way of doing that or saying that could sound something like this. We really like that you've taken the time to produce a well-researched piece of work. However, I've outlined a few areas where your tone might not match our company's voice. Could you take another look at those sections? So that's a way that you can give effective feedback where it's not emotional and it's taking the feeling out of it, but yet you gave constructive feedback. So step 1 is be positive. Step 2 is be specific and objective. Again, that whole taking the emotion out of it. Aside from approaching feedback from a positive perspective, the other most valuable thing that you can do to make your feedback more effective is to be specific. Just being general doesn't work. It doesn't cut it. Avoid making those general observations about something, such as, you were great in that meeting. Okay, what does that mean? I was great. I was great at what? I was great because I asked questions. I was great because I gave an awesome presentation. I was great because I was connecting with other team members. Just, I was great in that meeting is really kind of open and doesn't really say much. And although these statements might make others feel good at that moment, they don't give any further direction for the future. So that's why statements such as, you were great in that meeting is temporary, is good for that moment, but there's no further action. Instead, you can try something like, that meeting was fantastic. I really liked how much data you used to drive your point home, especially if you're talking about turnaround times, you're talking about productivity. So that meeting was fantastic. I really like how much productivity data you use to drive home your point. At the same time, focus on factual information with your feedback, particularly if you are given negative information. And a good friend of mine always says, stick to the facts, leave the emotions out of it. That way it's not personal. So if you got to give feedback or negative news, stick to the facts. So for example, instead of saying, I don't like how you handled that call, take your feelings out of it and say, great job on jumping into that call with a quick response time. It would have been better for you to introduce yourself on that call before you ask the physician or the client how you can help. So those are just simple ways. It was still giving constructive feedback, took the emotion out of it, but yet delivering it so that the employee could improve. So those are some simple ways of being specific and objective. And remember, objective and specific pieces of feedback will help your employees to understand what they've done well and where they could improve. And the last step in this given effective feedback process is step 3 is give actionable advice. Avoid only telling someone that you liked or disliked something they did. Give them actionable advice on what to do next. Actionable advice is what makes feedback constructive. So you gave me what it is that I should improve, but give me some strategies of what I can do better, because I am only looking at it from my viewpoint. You have an additional level of clarity around the particular situation, and that would be helpful for me to know because it may not be top of mind for me. So giving actionable advice will make feedback more constructive. So what this could sound like is, instead of, I think you could have done better in that call, explain what they can do to get better results the next time. This could sound something like, that call was very clear and well spoken, but I think you lost track of our message a few times. Perhaps you can glance down at our customer service script from time to time just to keep yourself on track. That way it doesn't sound defensive, but you're also letting them know that in that call, it seems like maybe they were rambling or they went off target with the message that they were supposed to be delivering. And you're bringing it to their level of awareness of things that they could do better. Having this level of effective feedback from your manager, from your supervisor, I'm telling you, will make a tremendous difference in your staff, because they're going to be very appreciative that you shared this information with them, especially if they may have tendencies of being a perfectionist. So being able to effectively deliver both positive and not so positive news is going to stretch your employee, but it's also going to help them to be able to be successful and to up level the way that they do things. Effective feedback is beneficial for you, your team, and your organization. Let me repeat, because I know it's easy to avoid the whole feedback, because for some reason, when we hear the word feedback, we associate that with something being negative, and not that it is positive. And feedback is negative and positive. So effective feedback is beneficial for you, your team, and your organization. So I definitely want you to keep these tips in mind so that you can keep your team on track with feedback is that they can appreciate. And give feedback often. Don't wait till it's time to do your annual review. Give it in your one-on-ones. Give it real time. That way people can adjust. They can, if you've ever had the stop, start, and continue in your organization, if you give feedback often, if there's things that they need to stop, they can stop. If there's things that they're doing well, they can, or need to do, they can start those things. And if there are other things that they are doing that's working very well for them, they can continue those things and they'll know that they're on the right track. So let me give you a practical case study that emphasizes the importance of effective feedback to kind of bring all of these steps together. So Ursula is a new employee at the Leaders Medical Laboratory. She was very excited to get this job because she heard it is a great place to work. She works as a generalist on first shift, which mainly deals with instrument maintenance, following up on problems, and completing the AM workload so that the lab results are on the patient's chart for morning rounds. Walter is the supervisor of the department. His employees respect him a lot because he also tells them their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to job performance. He gives regular evaluations, annual employee reviews, and knows the benefit of retraining when necessary. Ursula has heard so much positive feedback about her new boss, Walter, and has had the opportunity to receive feedback from him as well. He has expressed to her on numerous occasions how much of an asset he feels like she is to the organization. When he gives her criticism, it is constructive and always has a solution to the problem. Because of all the positive feedback, Ursula has no problem voicing her questions or concerns. So in that case study, we hear about Ursula and Walter. Ursula is a new employee and she's excited about her job. Think about those new students that you just hired. They're right out of school. They haven't worked in a laboratory before, and this is their first opportunity. So hearing that feedback to know if they're doing well, if there's opportunities for them to improve would be critical. You have to think about it too. They just came from a school environment, which means they got assessed regularly. So now that they're in the workplace, that use of being assessed, they're really still looking for that as they transition to being a part of your team. And as we learned from the case study, Walter happens to be a boss that has a reputation of giving feedback, both positive and constructive. And so his team enjoys working with him. His team doesn't mind voicing their questions or their concerns or giving their opinions, and they are very involved. Walter has created an environment of trust and respect as well. So if you are a new leader or manager, supervisor, team lead, I challenge you to see if there's ways in which you could be more like Walter, of being able to give regular evaluations, employee reviews, or one-on-ones with you, and retraining if necessary with your team to create that climate of trust, that climate of respect. And if you do those things, even if the environment is tough, meaning that you're short-staffed and the stress is high, your team members are going to be more engaged. As we talked about earlier, those benefits of feedback, you will start to see some of those things. You will start to see where employees are more engaged. You will start to see less staff turnover. You'll start to see an increase to your business outcomes and bottom line. You will start to see that increase in productivity. So to recap today's podcast, the 3 steps for giving effective feedback is: step 1, be positive. Step 2, be specific and objective. And step 3, give actionable advice. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Elaborate Topics. I know it's a topic today that is one that some people avoid about feedback. And really it's giving feedback, whether you're in a laboratory or in your personal life, is necessary. People want feedback. And so I hope you're able to apply some of the strategies that I gave you today. Please do us a favor, share this podcast out with somebody who can benefit from hearing these strategies. Share out the podcast. We're here week after week. You can catch up on some of our old podcasts where we talk about a lot of diverse topics. And just so that you will have it on your radar, we are approaching our 100th episode very, very soon. So you have to stay tuned so that you can get some of our highlights of some of the shows that we have done over the past couple of years. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I hope you have an amazing week and an amazing day. And don't forget, feedback is a gift. Use it often and use it wisely. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Elaborate Topics. where your hosts discussed relevant strategies for laboratory professionals. Please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and listen to us on directimpactbroadcasting.com. Stay tuned for another episode with information you can use to excel in your laboratory career.